I made these low poly models and put them in my game. It's the first step towards fully designed player characters and combat animations, but before that, I needed a proof of concept to make sure that I know how to take something from Blender and make it playable. In this video, I'll create low poly blockouts in Blender, rig them in Mixamo, and use them to replace the mannequins in my movement system, which you can playtest in your browser without downloading anything. Welcome! This is episode 5 of my devlog series on creating a PvP sword fighting action game incrementally, where every devlog comes with a playtest you can try. I start things off in Blender using cubes to block out a basic female form. Unfortunately, I didn't record that process, but it took me, a relative beginner at Blender, around 45 minutes to complete. Here you see me working on the male version by duplicating the first one and moving some vertices around, which took me just under 6 minutes. You might have noticed two things about my models. The first are these gaps between the cube segments, which I'll talk about shortly, and the second is that the proportions are a little bit off, which is because I didn't use any references. I've recently been learning how to draw, which helped with some parts of the models, but clearly I still have a lot more learning to do. And when I do work on my final base meshes, I will be using references. Now that I'm done modeling, I export FBX files to upload to Mixamo, which will automatically handle rigging for us. But here there's a problem, the gaps from earlier. For Mixamo's auto rigging to work, all parts of your model have to be connected, and these gaps are a big problem. I thought I could get around this by setting up the bones in Blender because Mixamo allows you to upload pre-rigged characters which can be converted, but no luck there either. It was still a good learning experience because I do need to know how to set up rigs for my combat animations. So I went back to Blender and filled in all of the gaps, and tried to make things look a little bit better while I was at it. I try exporting again and uploading to Mixamo. This time, it works. Great. But things look a little more rounded than I remember in Blender, and some of the deformations look very strange. That's probably because there isn't enough topology in my models for the animations to work properly. So back in Blender for the third time, I add more geometry using the Subdivision modifier. And export again. This time, it looks pretty good. Well, as good as you can expect for a cube person doing organic animations. With these low poly models finally working, I can put them in my code and replace my old mannequins so that I can use these new ones in my movement controller. Which is very quick because all I have to do is replace the file paths. For anyone new here, these animations and the old mannequins are from Mixamo. You can check my previous devlogs to see how I used those assets to set up my movement controller from scratch in Three.js using React 3 Fiber, and how the hex WASD thing works. Since I didn't have to do much coding for this episode, I decided to improve some of the sidebar controls as well. Now, instead of just controlling the player, you can switch to control the camera too, which I find very helpful because now I don't have to edit code just to record some clips. If you'd like to have the full source code for this playtest, including the model FBX files, along with those for all my other playtests, to really understand how features get implemented and changed over the lifetime of making a full game, it's available on Patreon right now, or for YouTube members once we reach 1,000 subscribers and get that set up. I added the time lapses earlier so you can see what it looks like when a beginner uses Blender. This was actually my first time making characters on my own. Of course, I've followed tutorials before, but this was the first time I just went with my imagination. And while some things went well, clearly some things didn't go as expected, and I want to document what that's like. As you saw in my time-lapse notes from earlier, I learned a lot this episode, which I'm quite happy about. I got some much-needed modeling practice, I got a lot more familiar with the various shortcuts in Blender, and I learned how to rig my model using the Rigify add-on. And while I didn't end up using that rig for today's episode, that knowledge will be useful down the line. When I start working on my base meshes, I'll need to take into account how the model will deform when it's animated, and that means I need to learn what good topology looks like. That's something I never thought about because until now I've only been practicing with static assets. And while I'm really excited about working on the environment and characters for my game, I'll need to keep in mind that my art skills aren't quite there yet, so it'll be an iterative process where I work on certain models and gradually improve them over time. And once I have those in a good place, I'll start working on shaders for some visual effects. But before I get too deep into that, I'll probably be working on the logic for my combat system. So once I have those models and animations, I'll write some code to make them interactive. I have a lot of ideas planned for my combat system, so I'm looking forward to working on it. What I have in mind is a simplified, MOBA-like experience that should be friendly to casual players while still being competitive and interesting for people who play more often. I actually had the idea for how everything is ultimately going to work before I even started on the project. So the first stages were actually just me doing some research to make sure everything would be possible. Next episode, I'm going to start working on the base meshes for my player characters, with plenty of help from tutorials and references. Don't forget to subscribe for future episodes of my devlogs, and let me know what you thought in the comments below. See you next time.